Okay.
Yeah, just have to make it look that right to
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live show. Welcome to the live show. Echo, echo. I know they're there somewhere. Oh, there's a crow sitting on the thing right across from us. Hey, crow. Carla says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Happy belated Beltane. Thank you, Carla. Ian says, hi and welcome to the channel. And the crow says hi, too, apparently. Sitting out there going, woohoo. Aaron says hello. Hi, Aaron. Ickle Pixie says, good evening, all. Hi, Ickle. We have a gorgeous day, but we have some definite wind from time to time. Jono says, hi, guys. Hi, Jono.
Hi, Jono.
Ian says, please come chat with us about magic. I know.
Probably people spell it with a K on there.
I understand that, yeah.
So,
That's why I said magic. Yeah, little in there.
Yep.
Super magic. Extra special super duper. Whee! Yep. So I hope everybody had a wonderful Beltane, whatever you did or didn't do while it was going on. We cleaned our yard. That's what we did. That was actually on May Day that we were out there.
And mowed it.
And Ian mowed it. I didn't. I didn't help with that. I helped with the cleaning up of stuff.
Yeah, the grass was getting hip high.
Yeah, it was definitely getting pretty tall. Yeah, so yeah, that was fun and exciting. Carlos says, I had a dream of a glowing rock last night. Strange, but I'm thinking good. Yeah, that sounds good to me. I kind of like that. I've had some interesting experiences myself for a couple of days. 3 nights in a row, actually, so I think it's a stable thing at this point. Jay Dan says, happy to catch you live. Hi, Jay. Welcome. We're always good to see new people. And then he retracted his message. He or she, I should say. Too late. I already said your name. You are now confirmed.
You've already been welcomed.
That's right. Too late. I already said thank you and welcome. You're still welcome. So any questions you have, feel free. You just got started, so it's always a good time to get on before everything gets all strange. How's everybody doing? Dan says, happy to catch you live and wanted to add a bunch of hearts. All right. Thank you for the hearts. Violet says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Violet. Welcome. Donna says, tell us about your weird stable experiences. Yeah, well, yeah, okay, so you all know, or most of you know, I should say, that a lot of times before I go to bed at night, I do some practicing. Sandcat says, beautiful early winter day here in New Zealand. Hi, Sandcat. And one of the things that I do on a regular basis, there's a few things I do, like look at my aura, see what I can see, and I'm at the point where I see the colors of my aura just pretty readily at this point. And then I often cast the pentagrams around my bedroom. I do the 4 elemental pentagrams and then the spirit pentagram above and below. And then at the end of that, I tend to like widen it out and like move it around our property, because it's sort of part of our, taking care of things on a psychic level and whatnot. And so a few days ago, see, this is Sunday, so Saturday, Friday, Thursday, so it was like 3 nights ago, so it must have been Thursday night. Hi, Gabriella. I was using my banishing wand to draw the pentagrams, And I noticed, I mean, I can see the energy when I draw them, but when I used the wand to draw them, the energy was more intense, and I started to see these kind of waves of energy uh, going outward from when I would use the wand. If I went that way, then the energy would keep going that way for a while. It was like pretty interesting. And so I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And so then I started looking at the wand, and that wand has got a yellow quartz crystal on the top that's got 2 points. One point and the other point. And I started looking at the energy coming out of the wand, and I noticed that in between the 2 points, there's actually a ball of energy at the top of that I could see quite clearly. And then I could wave that around and do stuff with it. And then as I got into that and was like looking at it and trying to see, the waves of energy are sort of like hard to describe, but they're kind of like heat signature sort of movement where you could see something moving if it was cold outside and something warm was happening. And it was sort of like that because it wasn't like a specific direction. It was just sort of like this motion that was getting more obvious throughout my room. And then as I was watching that and trying to tune into it, the light in my room started getting brighter and brighter, which I thought was interesting because I wasn't changing my light bulb or anything. And as it got brighter and brighter, then I started to see more stuff, and I started to see the sparks coming out in the room. Um, and it wasn't frightening at all. It was just very much there and sort of interesting and exciting. And it reminded me of when I saw the fairies with my eyes open down in Santa Cruz the first time as an adult, and that was leading into that. So then last night I was playing with the end of my wand and like feeling the ball of energy at the top. I could actually feel the edges of it. It's sort of like a electrical kind of static kind of sensation between my aura and finger and the energy ball that the wand has at the top of it. And so then I was like pulling things out and just seeing what was going on and just playing with it. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. And I find it a definite positive sign that those abilities are coming back and they're stable. As I said, it's like it's happening regularly and it's not like on drugs or anything else. It's just me. Of course, I'm probably making my own drugs in my mind, I'm sure. But yeah, so Gabrielle says, wow. Jono says, hi, Violet. I was thinking about you this week. Someone was talking about a book discussing divination with playing cards. You having fun yet? You sure don't want to invest in it? You sure you don't want to invest in a tarot deck? Gabrielle says, heck yes. All right, so that's what happened. And I'm definitely, I'm finding it interesting. It feels sort of like being at the cabin, like when we were on the power spot. It has that feeling, but we're not there. So, yeah, it's interesting anyway. So I'm having fun. What can I say? I've been dreaming about travel again. This time I dreamt that I was in England and I was going to Germany. So I woke up in the morning and I said, okay, universe, if you're going to be sending me all these dreams about travel, you better give me some money because I can't go traveling without it. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Jono says, that's awesome about your new experience, Siofra. Yes. Violet says, hi, Jono. That was cool, Siofra. I learned tarot so late in life at age 57. I could not learn before, but when I did, it was quite awesome. Jono says. Carla says, Siofra, do you think it's kind of like seeing a different light spectrum? I can only see Faye through my lens, so different spectrum that I can't see. Well, it's like tuning into a different level. Yeah, it's like a different kind of sight, but it's now gotten to the point where I can see it with my eyes. I was reading a bunch of different articles about the brain and how it works and how we experience the world and so forth. And of course, we've talked about how the brain will eliminate certain things from your field of view because it has been taught that that information is erroneous and not important and should be eliminated because you need to know what the important stuff is around you. And then in the latest article I read, it was talking about how your intent when you're coming into a room to look for a specific object, your intent will decide what objects you can see in the room based upon what you're trying to find, what image you have in your mind, which I thought was interesting. So other things could be right in front of you and you won't notice them because they don't match the criteria that your brain has put forth. And I thought that that was interesting since intent is one of the things we talk about a lot in magic. It's like having a clear intent for what you're trying to do. Um, and then, trying to train my brain into not eliminating all the things that I might be able to see and experience just because it's been taught not to. And I think it's working. I think it's slowly unraveling some of the programming and stuff that I got when I was a kid from the time when I was in the first grade when I could see the energy quite clearly and then tried to shut it down. And then all the things that happened in life and what I learned and I'm trying to unlearn some of those restrictions that I placed on myself from society and worrying about what people are going to think and concerned about what might be happening to me and all that other stuff. So it is kind of interesting. Gabriel says that makes sense, Carla. And yeah, I mostly see with my physical eyes and film them to reality check, but also see in my mind it looks like rainbow lights. The fairies look like electrical, colorful fireworks with my eyes closed. Yeah, and I see a lot of these things easier with my eyes closed because then I'm not distracted by what I see with my eyes open. So this is like the things I'm now seeing with my eyes open are a good distraction. They're the kinds of things I'm trying to see. Yeah, and it was very interesting for sure. Carla is nodding in agreement, which she does a lot, and then has to tell us because she realizes suddenly that no one can see her nod. Gabriella says, then I also get telepathic images of spirits, so it's like 3 layers of seeing. Yeah, and there's definitely that too. So it was, yeah, it's different. More, I don't know, layered. So yeah, I'm excited about the possibilities. And it's like I don't follow a specific program. It's not like one thing leads to another, and I have it planned out. It just sort of happens that it's happening like that, where I get used to one kind of psychic ability or whatever, and then something else comes into play. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. So we'll see what happens next. But those are my exercises. I don't do them for a huge amount of time because I don't want to make myself go crazy. It reminded me of some of the channeling that I did, especially when I was channeling a much higher level. Moida was an easier kind of channel because she's sort of closer to my energy, even though she's apart from it. But when we started getting into the layer of spirits above her, then when I would be channeling that energy, I would feel like I was being held on the edge of insanity, and at any moment's notice, it could all break loose. And it was a very uncomfortable kind of feeling. And so it's sort of like that, except I'm not feeling I'm going to probably go insane in a second as much. So that's good. And having the control allows me to say, okay, that's enough. I'm gonna come back to that and try some more later. So Gabrielle says, this is why it's been hard to function because the last few years it's been very distracting seeing the physical sparkles, and I'm like a squirrel. Carla says, hi, Angel Girl. My spectrums aren't commingling yet, but my lens helps, kind of like you can only see the remote light through your camera lens. It's coming. Pickle says, can you say more about what you mean by layered? Does it feel like an overlay, or is it more like tuning a radio as you lose one station and another comes in? I think it's more of an overlay, but it is sort of like tuning into the frequency. It's just like it's there, but I don't always see it. and somehow I'm learning how to allow myself to actually see it. I'm curious to see where this is going to lead as far as like, but I'm glad I have control and I can stop it so that way I can still drive and not run into swirling patterns of energy and not know where I am. So it's important to stay grounded when you're doing this kind of stuff. Um, but it is like tuning yourself into a frequency, I think, is a lot of it. Yeah. Again, hard to explain. That's why it's so interesting. It's like the movement is quite distracting when all of a sudden I start seeing energy moving around and it's like over here and over there and up, it's just like all over the place and yeah, so it's trying to stay centered in it all and not lose track of where I am in it. Gabrielle says, so I have to ignore sometimes and do physical things like drawing or somatic breathing to anchor myself. Yeah, and that's what we talk about a lot is learning control to be able to turn it on and off so that it's not debilitating. Carla says, I see the sparkles. I call them shimmer. In the trees is where I see the shimmer and in the bushes. Yeah, it reminded me, the stuff coming off my wand reminded me of the streamers of energy I saw coming out of the tops of the trees when the full moon was coming up one of the years that we were at the cabin, where I could see the energy so clearly as the full moon was rising, and it was pretty spectacular, and I really was into it. Just describing it to Ian because he was there. He's my safety net. If anything goes wrong, he can always bring me back. So, and then at that place, I feel more comfortable doing it because it's sort of why we're there in the first place. So, it seems like a standard experience to have when we're sitting on the power spot. Gabrielle says, I'm glad we're talking about this. I was feeling like a weirdo for the last few years and wondering why few people care about the sparkling ethers that's everywhere. I think a lot of people just don't notice them at all. Shimmer is a good description of them too, I think, because it is like that. It's like, and I think that's where the brightness, like the increased light that seemed brighter in the room, is part of that effect. Um, yeah, and maybe seeing more of the universal life force light, the silver light with the golden sparkles that we work with when it comes to the tree meditation and so forth. That this whatever's happening is bringing me up more into that uh, level of energy, and I'm seeing more of it, kind of thing. It's interesting anyway. So I'm trying to stay open, keep an open mind, not trying to do too much analyzing of it because sometimes that can sort of block you from having the experience. But yeah. Teresa says, hi all, I'm packing up my wares at Beltane in the park in Winnipeg. I'll try to keep up. Hi Teresa, I'm glad you're having fun in Winnipeg in the park. Gabrielle says, yes, Siofra, this is what is exactly I've been experiencing, and it scared the crap out of me at first. Yeah. Dancat says, I don't see shimmers, but I did find a really unusual beech tree a few weeks ago. It has the biggest branches growing up from the base. People don't seem to notice it. I really love it. And Jono says, what is that? Is that
That's
a
curling,
candle? A
that's
curling iron? Okay.
A curling, not a curling iron, but curling stone.
Yeah.
Right.
I
You
think
said
they.
a curling iron.
Right. I meant the stone.
Curling stone, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you can use that one on your head.
No, that could hurt. Carla says, ask it for a branch, Sandcat. Yeah. And Carla just came across a wonderful ancient tree that she's started to work with that's quite lovely. Nice old tree. So, cool. Sandcat says that's a good idea, Carla. Yeah, I think that when we meet special trees, that's sort of what's happened to me for sure. They often make really good wands because you have an actual emotional connection to the specific tree. Gabrielle says, yeah, it's gotten really bright a few days ago and I had to stop looking and shut it down. Also, you'll notice wherever you look, the energy will swirl around quickly and start to materialize beings. Echo says, I finally managed to connect to my tree this week too. It was really perspective shifting. Awesome. And it is very perspective shifting to actually connect to another form of consciousness. Gabrielle says it materials a swirl that looked like an electron cloud, then out popped a fairy. I had, when I was younger, a teenager, I went on a camping trip with my mom and my sisters. We went to the Appalachian Mountains, Smoky Mountain Range, and we were going from Virginia down to South Carolina or Cape Hatteras. We ended up going off the coast of North Carolina down Cape Hatteras and back. And when we took our hike up the mountain and got to the top, and there was this nice blue sky, looking out to the blue sky, I started to see this moving pattern of like concentric, not circles, but kind of like petals, except they weren't like a flower, but they would like they were moving and then growing into the center, and then and they were just doing this and going, and it was like pulling me out of my body, and as I watched it, and I still see that from time to time when I'm looking at the sky. I'll often see that first before I start to see the gray popcorn kind of stuff that tells me that my astral vision is kicking in, and then I start to see shapes and figures and whatever in the sky. Carla says, Siofra, I was so excited. I have a small piece of it in the battery plate. That was something, the ancient hemlock and the crow feather. Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's always nice to get a gift of a feather. And, just making connections with other life forms. It helps us to sort of viscerally allow those other energies to enter into our space and us into theirs, and help us to feel more a part of this whole pattern. It's like we're just one part of this entire biosphere. And so, yeah, it's just awesome. It really is. So yeah, I'm pretty excited that that happened, and I'm seeing more stuff. I also noticed that now I'm seeing a pretty strong purple around the outside of the inner green aura that I have. When I see my green aura first, and then I'll see the dark purple is really coming out around my hands. And I'm sure part of that is working with the amethyst crystal web too, as well, making things happen. Speaking of which, full moon's coming up, and so we're going to do another live show for the full moon on Friday. I have to set up the Zoom thing first before I can put it out on Facebook and on our channel, but I'm going to do that after the show this afternoon, and get that set up so people can come and participate, whoever wants to. And it's going to then be shared with everybody else, so if you don't feel comfortable having anyone see your face, you can just keep your face blank. You can change your name so no one knows who you are, and whatnot. So, but it was really fun the first time, so we're going to do it again. Carlos says, clapping in excitement. And we're going to try something new. We're going to add something to this. I've decided that I wanted to take known crystal cave locations of amethyst crystal caves and then add them to the web specifically. So the first one I'm going to add is the crystal cave in Scotland, since Teresa put up a picture of that on our private group on Facebook. So I can get the exact location for that one, and we'll find a new one every month to add to it, and sort of make these caves power nodes, kind of like on in the power grid across the planet where you've got power spots. We'll make these crystal caves consciously part of the pattern as like a generator kind of thing, and adding more energy to it. I think that would be extremely fun and good. Pickle says, geek hopping with Carla claps. Gabrielle says, whoa, I'm glad I'm not crazy, because having clairvoyance open up as an adult is a doozy. Split off that part of me as a child, but I couldn't stay locked in my mental cage forever. Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, that's our difficulty. Society teaches us that this is not okay. In the old days, we would have ended up as an oracle or working, as a priestess or a priest for a god or a goddess. It would be a soothsayer or something. They would have made use of our talent, and we would have been accepted as a normal part of society and a necessary welcome part of it. So maybe things will start shifting back. Who knows? But in the meantime, we need to help each other and figure this stuff out, make sure that we're learning as much as we can in the process. So, on that note, I have finished the video on creating your own shield, your own personal shield. Several of you have asked me to do that, and I've gotten it done. It'll be out in a couple of days. I've done two videos. One explaining what we're doing on the meditation because I want it to just be a guided meditation without any kind of verbalage, in there. And the other one just the meditation itself. And it's the parts of it. I'm going to start off with the outside shield, and you can choose how much of it you want to go through at a time. So if you're really confident in your outside shield and then you want to do the inner shield, but then that starts to feel like a little bit too much, then you can stop it at any one of those points. So we've got 3 shields we're doing: the outside, the inside, and then the close to your body shield. And then I've added casting the elemental pentagrams around your body and above and below you as an extra layer of protection. And so you can, however much of it you want to do, you can do it. So that'll be fun. I'm curious to see what people think of it. I was trying to explain how I made my shield. It's always a challenge to try and figure out what are the steps that I've taken to, because it's just been sort of an automatic act on my part. It's like just sort of, yeah, that's what I want, and then I do it. So to figure out how to share that as a step-by-step process. And so yeah, definitely was a challenge to get it all right. So I'm, at the moment, at least pleased with it, and we'll see what I think afterwards. Gabrielle says, can't wait to watch it. Carla says, how's everyone's yard wildlife acting? I have a special robin that comes around and some attentive house wrens. Robins are kind of like corvids in the smarts department. They remember you. But we have our usual crew of little birds, and I think the shield videos will be really helpful, Teresa says. Oh, yeah, I had an interesting experience. I made those plaques, the one with the palm, the modification of the palm with the eye in it, and I put in different symbols and all this other stuff and whatnot as sort of protection kind of things. And I have one on my front gate, and I have one on my front door of my house. And I was just sitting in the living room working on something, and I suddenly felt an energy, and I looked out the window, and there was a woman standing in front of my gate, really staring at that plaque that I put up very intently. And I looked out the window at her, and then she looked up at me. It was like a couple of times, and I'm like, how interesting, because I was very aware of the fact that her energy was out there and that she was looking at my plaque. And we have new neighbors next door. I think she's one of our new neighbors. So I'm not sure what she thinks of it, but I was very aware of her presence. So it was kind of interesting that made my antenna go, hey, what's going on outside? Ha, okay, there you are. You're looking at that. Uh-huh. And you're still looking at that. She must have stood there for minutes looking at it. And it's like, So I guess if they ask me if I'm a witch, I guess I'm going to have to tell them. Teresa says, Hamsa. Yeah, that's what the hand is called. Jay says, I watched your videos on wands. They are beautiful. Do you sell them for others? I do. I've made a number of wands and sold them. I only have a couple of wands made right now that are on my Etsy site. I haven't gotten back into wand making mode. I have to be in the right frame of mind if I'm going to make them, because I don't want them to just be like a product line kind of a thing. But I feel what crystals the wood wants to have and so forth. But there are a couple on my Etsy site you can check out and see. And yeah, and you can also send me an email at chiefersmagicalcove@gmail.com and let me know what kind of a wand you're looking for and what idea you have, and I might be able to just come up with one. I have a lot of wood I've harvested over the years that I have in the house that I've treated and have ready for making into wands, and I've got tons of different kinds of crystals and stones and things lying around waiting for their opportunity to go out of the house. So feel free to send me an email and and check out the ones that are there. I'm not sure if you can see the ones that have been sold and get an idea of some of them or not, since as a user, I don't know. But yeah, and my Etsy site is the same as everything else, Siofra's Magic Alcove, and there should be a link to that in the description of all of my videos, this one included. So, Carla says maybe a kindred. Maybe so. I guess we'll find out. They moved down here recently, and they're still working on the place, so they haven't moved in yet, so I can't go over there and say, hey, hi, I'm your neighbor. Here's my phone number in case there's an emergency. Gaga says, can a spirit train itself to be more seen by people in the physical world? I do believe that that can happen, but in general, the people who see it have to be special in their own way. Usually they're not just going to physically manifest. There's very few instances of spirits manifesting themselves to the point where everyone can see them, but there are some. A number of Marian sightings are like that, where there's pictures and video and stuff of spirit manifestations and whatnot. In the Middle East is one of the more common places. There was one when I was living up in the Kispioks that was happening over there in Egypt, I think. I can't remember exactly where it was now because it's been too long, but they can happen. Teresa says it's used in many cultures and religions. Yeah, and I liked the Hamsa as a basis to get started, and I just used my, was it your hand I used? I think I used your hand as, because it was bigger, but it's like, it's like our actual hand print kind of thing or shape and to start it with. But I wanted to put in the proper associations, the elemental and planetary associations, because there's so many different interpretations of that on the internet. I wanted to make sure if I was going to do it, I got them right. So I did my research and found reliable sources for the information and so forth and got them there. Because I see a lot of these memes that come by and say, this means that, this means that. And I'm like, no, that's not right. That's the wrong association. I'm not sure where you got that from. But yeah. Gabrielle says, are Fae born still? Like, are there baby Fae with parents? I don't know. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be, like every other kind of form of existence. Like human souls, I'm sure, are being born all the time, too. Carla says, Teresa, I wanted to ask about the Beltane Festival. How was it? Gabrielle says, wonder, do fairies have to learn to shapeshift? I think that's a natural ability that they have. Nicholas says, I had something bug me the other night, and I tried all my usual boundary setting, and it was awfully stubborn until I accepted within limits and grounded it out. Is that a thought form? It wasn't unfamiliar, but it wasn't me, and being able to tell it was separate and ground it out was new. Probably a thought form, sounds like it, because generally speaking, those are the things that you can actually ground. I mean, I had that happen when my at the Blue Zoo in the house, where I had a housemate mad at me and was sending me all these thought forms, and I kept grounding them out and then I realized they weren't mine. And then I figured out where they were coming from, and then I stopped them from coming in my room anymore by sticking up a mirror and sending them back to her who didn't sleep all night. So, yeah, someone had asked a question before about how you ground out a thought form, and it's kind of hard to explain like everything else. It's like you see the thought form, you visualize it going into the earth and grounding out. That's just kind of it. That's how it works. And what exactly the mechanism is for doing that, knowing that you can do it would be number one. Visualization and being able to visualize it happening would be number two, I guess. But yeah, you can ground out your own thought forms as well, but it's always, I think, simpler to ground out someone else's. That's what it sounds like to me. Carla says there's a metaphysical fair in the park a few towns over next week, and so hopefully I'll get to swing by. I always grab a painting from one of the artists at those types of gatherings. Teresa says Beltane was pleasant. Weather was very warm but windy. The maypole arrived late but made it. There was also a hand fasting. Lots of food, and Barters picked up a soon-to-be Athame. Yeah, I saw a picture of that. That was a nice knife. It's always good to get a good dagger to start with. Something my granddaughter needs. She lost hers. She hasn't been able to find it.
You know, seem good at learning much about the subject.
Well, it depends. Sometimes she is, and sometimes she isn't like that. But anyway, my sister's doing better. I checked in with her, and she's continuing to improve. And it sounds like the sepsis is gone, but she's anemic, and she has another doctor's appointment this coming week, and then surgery towards the 20th and the 21st of May. She has two different surgeries. One for taking out the tube that's in her kidney that's draining it, and to replace that, and then the other one for taking out the stone that's blocking the entire kidney. So, hand fastings are pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not an uncommon time to do a hand fasting as on Beltane. It's yeah, the right word's not coming to mind, but it's a good time for that. Carla says, ooh, an Athame. I'm going to check for the picture of it. It rained here since Friday and just quit maybe an hour ago. Very soggy here. Yeah, I had an interesting thing on my other page of Facebook in my local community. I was looking, and someone asked what people did for Beltane, and I was surprised at how many people responded in having done rituals or just working in the yard, and there wasn't all of that yelling at people about being evil witches and stuff, so that was nice. Maybe there's more pagans in my community now than I knew. Well, if Carla wants to see it, I guess Teresa will have to post it on the private group so everyone can see her new knife, if she doesn't mind. But yeah. Yeah, it's nice to have the weather shifting and things changing that way. And the light coming in more, and before we know it, it'll be the summer solstice. Like, no! Then it's going to go back the other way. It happens every year. Of course, I'm sure people in New Zealand are hoping for that so that they can start getting the light back. Being in the middle of winter, the southern hemisphere and whatnot. But it's like so interesting. Like every place on earth has got some amazing, beautiful something happening in it, like life form or scenery or energy or whatever. It's like there's so much variety on our planet. It's way cool. Teresa says, I'll post it for sure. Awesome. Don't feel pressured though. You don't want to. You don't have to. Just because someone else wants to see it. So yeah, been a busy week. Ian learned how to weld. He decided to do his own welding on the car. We were talking about that last week. We were going to have a welder came and looked at it, and he decided he didn't like what her approach was going to be, so he decided to do it himself. So he welded, and the door is hung now, and it works. So very exciting.
Yeah, and I just have to put the fender back on and we're good to go.
He got some fiberglass to do too. A little bit, yeah. But hey, nice to have someone who can learn a new skill. A Renaissance man is what I called you this morning.
Nothing. I just, I can't imagine like not wanting to learn new things. It's always been part of me. I love learning new things.
Yep.
All kinds of new things.
And you can get very skilled in a huge range of things. So this is a good thing. That's the definition of a polymath, which was
I'm bad at math.
I know it doesn't have to do with math. I don't know why they call it a polymath because yeah, math is really not necessarily in the equation. I'm also bad at math, but being able to be highly skilled in a number of different disciplines that aren't necessarily related to each other is actually the definition of that. Jack of all trades, but the full version, not the abridged. Yes. Carla says thank you, Teresa, for going to post the picture. Yeah. It's always good to check in with each other. I like that. All right, so that was all about me. So now what do we want to talk about? Uh,
Sorry, I'm having a hard time just falling asleep. I've been doing it for the last week or two.
yeah, you've been getting sleepy in the middle of the day.
Okay,
Gabrielle says, I learned how to make paninis. Well, good for you. I don't know how to make them. It's a sandwich bread. Woo! Yay! Carla says, interesting changes here in town. The mayor is getting challenged. The most offensive deliverance ministry is moving out of town. Ooh, awesome. The backer of the other deliverance ministry is getting hassled. Cool. By the sheriffs. Gabrielle says, I'm loving my dinners. Yay. Well, that sounds positive. Going in the right direction, energetically speaking, getting rid of the kind of people. It's always good to see changes in our neighborhoods, positive changes. Jay Dan says, is it this Friday that you will be live? Yeah, it'll be Friday at 8 o'clock my time. I have to set a time to do it, and I need to have it when the moon is in the sky. And it'll be on Zoom. So it is live on Zoom. And for people who can't make it, then I post the link in the community post section on our channel here. And then you can go and you can do it yourself. You can follow along with the whole thing yourself when you have the moon in your sky. So I like to do it before the moon is full so that people who can't participate can still do it before the full moon. It's like, the moon will appear full. It seems to be full for like 3 days. A day before is officially full, and a day after, as well as the day of. I think Saturday is the official day of, late in the night sometime. So that's why I decided to do it on the Friday. And yeah, well, I'll post the link to the Zoom thing on the channel as well as on Facebook. And now we had, I think, 5 or 6 people that participated while we were live. It was 6 of us total, so 5 other people. And then other people watched it and went along with it, followed along with it afterwards. So I think that's a good way of doing it. Carla says weirdness, but I'll take it. Gabriella says, good, Carla, because it's such a dark energy with those types of groups. They inadvertently harm mentally vulnerable people. That's for sure. So that's awesome that they're packing up. Joy says, came in late. What will you be doing on Friday? We'll be doing the live Zoom full moon amethyst crystal web charging. It's specifically for the amethyst crystal web. Not everybody is interested in doing that, but that's fine. But we've started this project 7 years ago, and this month, actually, well, I guess April 29th was the anniversary, the 7th year anniversary of the beginning of the Amethyst Crystal Web. And so every month I've been charging up the Crystal Web. We charge it up with joy, peace, and tranquility. That's kind of the energy we're trying to put it in it and connect all the amethysts around the planet with each other and so forth. And recently we've been able to do more with it. We actually helped to heal a power spot in Krakow, Poland. One of our members wanted to see if we could clear it out and was asking for ideas, and I came up with that idea of her, since she was there, planting amethyst in the ground and then adding that to the crystal web and trying to clear it out. And then she went back later and confirmed that the energy had shifted significantly. And it's sort of becoming a haven for a lot of us extremely sensitive people during this time of chaos around the planet, especially for us here in the United States, but everywhere else, I'm sure there's lots of chaos everywhere. And you can tap into it. You can charge up smaller crystals. You can charge up your amethyst jewelry if you have it, or a piece of amethyst that you want to wear or stick in your pocket. You can bury it in different locations in your community, like at City Hall or the courthouse or wherever you think it might need to get some of that energy involved. And it's just there for people to use. And I had this very significant dream about it where I actually dreamt that it was like a pocket world, that the amethyst web has become a pocket world that we can go into when we need it. And it's really helped me deal with the stress of what's going on around everywhere, and sort of maintain a certain level of sanity, I guess, and distance, mental distance, or overview more accurately. And so that's what it is, and that's what we're doing, and it will be there for anyone to participate. Last month's one is already up on our channel. It's not like a video you can find in the video list. It's in the link to the Zoom afterwards is there, that people can then link, check on that and watch it or participate in it or what have you. So that's what we're doing. Carla says, Gabrielle, you're so right. That's why they're here praying. Small town, rural, hot hard by heavy drugs. Hit hard. They're all moved in at once. Joy says, oh, good, because I didn't get a chance to repeat it last month. Yes. Barry says, hi, all. Siofra, have you heard of or been to Lilydale? No, I have not. Apparently, I'm going to sneeze. Have you?
No.
Woo! That was fun. Carla says, then similarly bad, our school teams up with the paper mill, basically so they can get young workers. I hope for something better for these kids, and I think the paper mill should be a mandatory hemp plant. Joy says, I need to take a piece to work. Right, and you can leave it in your drawer, you can stick it on your desk, and do whatever you want with it. Nicholas says, I want to ask, is it okay to use connected amethyst in a working, specifically a protection working? I've been trying to figure out, uses the love and upkeep of the area to help protect it. I don't see why not. I'm not seeing a reason for that being a no, because that's sort of, it'll bring that energy to whatever it is you're doing. Because that's what it does, love, peace, and tranquility. It's connected to that. And then if you have it connected to the web, every time we charge the web, it'll get stronger. Every time you charge the web, it'll get stronger. And so it'll get access to, this larger energy field and so forth that we're building. And yeah, it's coming along. I can sense it pretty well. A lot of other people are starting to sense it too. So, yay. Carla says, bless you. Thank you. That was a good sneeze. Unexpected. Allergies. They're so much fun. But yes. The thing I like about it is that it's so gentle as well as powerful. And on my altar, I've added our earth ball, which we send energy to the planet and have had that for, I don't know, 20 years or more. And then the peace ball that we made specifically just for the peace aspect that we also charged up for several years. I think we charged that up. That was a more recent addition. I put them both on the altar with the amethyst batteries that I have and so forth. It's kind of cool. Definitely one of my favorite stones. Always has been, I think. I've been given amethyst over the years. Got one from a great aunt when she died. Big amethyst. And then that one went away, and then I got another one from my second husband's grandmother when she died, and we ended up, or when his father died, we ended up inheriting his house, and his grandmother left me this very large, who was also dead, uh, pin, silver pin that has a pretty big amethyst in it that I still have. She wanted me to have that because that was my first time being a medium for a spirit and using my voice, which I didn't care for. So I didn't do that again. But yeah. Carla says there's this blue jay out there yelling, but do you think it'll show itself, little bugger, every morning and evening? Gabrielle says, I wish I could hear the trees like you, Siofra. Just want to hear tree gossip. Well, they're kind of subtle language, but they're very chatty. It's easier if you're trying to hear what they're saying to touch them and quiet your mind when you do that. And if you can clear your mind of your own thoughts and so forth, then their energy and their thoughts can seep in, and you can feel at least what they're up about, what they're doing, and it's a cool thing. I'm really glad that people are making connections like that. Gabrielle says, "Okay, I'll try it." Yeah, I did a lot of sitting at the base of that cedar tree that became my first wand. I meditated at the base of that tree every day for a year or so and really could feel its energy. And the other trees that were around there and just sort of absorbed that connection kind of thing. I guess if I think about all the different meditations I've done over the years, there's quite a few of them. Starting off when I was a kid, laying on the grass looking at the sky. Nichols says it felt so balanced and really, really patient and not even a little bit worried, not in the busy way people are anyway. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you made that connection because I think that's really important. So, yay. Joy says, I'm going to try to connect to my land spirit this summer. Kind of worried it's mad at me for cutting down some trees. Well, it knows that trees come and go. So try not to worry about it too much, but definitely, if it is mad, I recommend using Apache tears for apologies and connections and stuff with a land spirit guardian because there's always something dramatic that's happened pretty much everywhere on the planet, it would seem. And so honoring its history and and how it feels about its job to protect and so forth and recognizing it for what it does is a good step towards making a healthy relationship with it. And I told you about the one that I met over here and how apparently without my realizing it, I made a strong enough connection to it that when I had a dangerous person staying in my house, the land spirits came into my house and filled up my whole house. I was very confused there for a while, like, what? Why is it in my house? What's going on? And it was trying to warn me that I had a person in my house that was not good. So that was kind of interesting. So you can make these powerful connections with these spirit beings, and they will do things to help you out when you don't expect it. So Teresa says tree communication, get yourself in an altered space with sacred feelings, touch the tree, feel the vibration, and listen. Gabrielle says that's a great idea. And yeah, I'm curious now to get a couple of my wands together and see if I can see their patterns interacting with each other and see what comes out of it. I mean, just worked just with the banishing wand recently, but I'm thinking I should add a different wand into this and see what happens with it. I'm curious. Pickle says, my apple tree and I have been pals for a while. This tree was a very huge, very old oak. Very different experience to my little excitable 18-year-old apple tree. Oh yeah, the older the tree is, and the more it's connected to the energy of the other trees in its genre, genus, whatever. How many other trees are in its group um, can make a big difference as far as how the tree feels. It's like if you can get to the oldest tree in the area, that's quite an experience because they have definitely a different feel to them. You get a tree that's hundreds of years old, or like some of the sequoias that are maybe 1,000 or more years old, then you have like a lot more going on in it. And each tree is going to have different energy too because of the type of wood it is and the kind of energy that it makes. So, a good thing. Like everyone, people are different, trees are different, animals are different, everybody's different, everything is different. And some are different from each other too. So, Gabriel says, can nature spirits become disfigured after absorbing human traumas from the land? I never seen that in person. I wouldn't say it couldn't happen, but um, I know that nature spirits have been hurt in the sense that how people feel about them can affect them, and all of the negative talk about them hurts their feelings in that sense. And so, on some level, they care about how we feel about them. But yeah, so I don't know.
I think that's pretty valid.
It's one of the reasons why I keep talking, the positive aspects of it and how we need to stop repeating the stories about them being nasty, evil
Just
creatures.
treat them with respect. That's my feeling. Treat all creatures with respect, and that's how you're going to get the best results, even if it's your pet, like a bunny rabbit. We respect their little bunny's little area and stuff.
Yeah. Carla says they feel like sentinels, the old ones, watchers of the woods. Yeah. Gabrielle says, I've seen a really hideous little elemental and I wondered if that's what happened to him. I was extra nice to him. Well, I mean, and that's the other thing, though, too, is that just because something looks hideous to us doesn't mean it's actually hideous at all to themselves. So it could be that it just represents something that has a misshapen, what we would see as something misshapen, and it's an actual representation of that particular plant or whatever. So, yeah, but good to check our prejudices for sure, and being extra nice to him. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone says laugh out loud. That's a good point. Yeah, we have to be careful of our judgments. Um, we tend to be pretty instantly judgmental about things based upon our culture or our experiences or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with having the thought, but then realizing that it may not actually apply. And that's part of what we're talking about with working with nature spirits, is accepting them for who they are and what they are, without being afraid of what they look like, or because like if you watch, we watch a lot of TV shows, obviously, because we talk about them. um, but I've noticed that in TV shows, red and black are evil colors. That's pretty much across the board. In any TV show, you see somebody coming out with a bunch of red stuff or a bunch of black stuff, you can be sure that they're the bad guy. and and that a lot of cultures associate those two colors with negativity. And of course, they're just colors, so they don't necessarily mean anything at all. And I just thought it was interesting. And of course, white is good, black is bad, all that other stuff. And so you can come across those kinds of assumptions about what things mean without even realizing it. It's like, yep, but is it true? Really? Or is that just a human perception of things? and what we've decided. This is true. We know better. Yeah. I don't know how much we actually know. Gabrielle says, I saw one that looked different looking. It startled me, but when I looked into his eyes, I thought he was a sweetie. Yeah, and most of the time that's the case. It's like sometimes they like to be funny, but yeah. But I think that's good that you can see them in their actual shape or whatever, and they don't have to shapeshift to make you feel better. Apparently, a lot of different people see fairies floating around my aura, which I thought was interesting that I have that effect. And that one time when I saw them with my eyes open was so funny because the little ones that were dragonfly size with dragonfly like wings were just all like flittering around and all excited, and the bigger one with the butterfly wings came in and was herding them out because apparently I was distracting them from their job. So I'm not the only one who is drawn to sparkles. Apparently they are too. It's like, ooh, sparkles. What's that? Yeah. So yeah. And when I've done other stuff like setting up someone's temple in another neighborhood, and I started doing the clearing of the house and then the sealing of the house, with the ghost proofing and stuff like that. All of a sudden, at one point, when I was setting up the temple in her house, um, I felt this like, ah, witches! And I started laughing. I said, yeah, there's witches here because we have a special relationship with the nature spirits and the fairy folk. It's like, we're kind of compatible when it comes down to it. And it's probably been missing us for a while since we went through all that, not good to be a witch, gonna get killed kind of time frame there. And then the whole intellectualism of everything. So mystic is, and magic and stuff like that was just all delusion and so forth, which some of it probably is, but still, not all of it. Certainly seems pretty real to me. And I think I'm grounded enough to not be completely flying off the deep end. So yeah, it's funny. That's why so many every culture's got stories about them because there's something there. We're really talking about spirits today, which is cool. And energy, of course, because I got that started. Oh, Joyce says I had 4 small Apache tears that I was going to wire wrap and make a bracelet. Well, if you use the Apache tears for the Guardian, you want to put them in the ground. So you might want to get some more for just that purpose. And you only need one. And you can make if you use tobacco, you can make a tobacco offering. If you don't, you can use something that you use like sweetgrass or sage or something that is sacred to you that you use on a regular basis that has a connection to your energy. So it's not just some random thing you read in a book, but something personal. That's kind of what they told us. Stop using tobacco because we don't smoke.
Yep, and no personal meaning to us.
So Jay says, do you believe in orgone energy?
I don't know. I found it makes fascinating reading, and I've actually got plans for some of Reich's orgone stuff, but I never tried building any of it. Yeah, good question. I'm ambivalent on the point. I don't judge one way or the other. Um, yeah,
So I guess we're open-minded to the possibility, but haven't come to a conclusion.
yeah. I've got some schematics and things and some devices you can build, but I don't know. There doesn't seem to have been very much following it or any, follow-up research or anything that got too much out of it. I don't know. Always kind of seemed like a dead end to me from reading Reich's work. It was by Wilhelm Reich. researched and discovered all that stuff. And
He wasn't a very
supposedly,
nice person either.
he supposedly had some cloud busters that you put some PVC tubing, you put it into running water, and then it supposedly sucks some energy from the atmosphere and caused clouds to diminish. I don't know. Supposedly.
Carla says they do seem to like sparkly things. They threw amethyst to them and said that out loud. I'm so glad my hubs is okay with my crazy in the woods. Well, good. Got a good one there. It's definitely it's hard to be with someone who thinks you're insane. It doesn't help, especially when you know what you're doing. I mean, I'm amazed. I mean, I tell people stuff, and every so often I think about it, and I think, what do they actually think about what I'm telling them? Are they just nodding and going, and thinking to themselves, yeah, humor her. You don't know what she might do next. Whatever you do, don't let her know you think she's nuts. I don't know. But yeah, every so often I wonder, but then I realize it doesn't matter because whatever is going on in their head is going on in their head, and mine's mine. So, there you go. But yeah, being accepted is important. I've had some pretty remarkable experiences that just sort of happen spontaneously, and I just go with them when they happen. It's just like, okay, here's what's going on right now. We're doing this paranormal investigation. We got these spirits we have to cross over. We got this spirit from a past life that's come forward in time that I have to do something for. It's like, whatever it is. It's just like, okay, that's accept that reality, and here we go. Gabrielle says, what would it take to heal the land if a massacre happened in a town? That's what happened to the natives in my town in 1840 gold rush. Would it take a large amount of energy to fix that? You know, that might be something that the amethyst crystal web kind of energy could help with, potentially. Putting amethyst in the land where that happened and connecting it to that joy, peace, and tranquility and help drain the energy off. It could make a difference. I don't know. We haven't tried that one. It did make a difference in the horrendous things that happened in Krakow in that one spot. So maybe. It depends. It's kind of like the Akasha matrix. The earth remembers events, and some events it remembers for a longer period of time and can really affect the place. If a lot of people died in one spot, it can kind of rip a hole, in a sense, to the other side where there's more potential activity going on there. If there's ghosts that are still wandering around, it's going to add to it. It's a complex situation. I haven't tried something like that in person, so I don't have any personal reference experience or whatever for that. Carla says, laugh my ass off. Echo says, I don't know, my husband 100% thinks I'm insane. He's also 100% on board, and he thinks sanity is overrated. That's good. Carla says, same, Echo Pixie. Carla says, he always says, I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up. Yeah, that would be something that the character from Babylon 5, Kosh, would say. Understanding is not required. Something cryptic like that. Gabrielle says, laugh out loud. Yeah, it's not everyone's going to understand us. That's just all the way it is. It's just acceptance, not understanding. We can work with that. It's like, I get results, so what's to complain about, right? Thank goodness Ian and I are both magical people. It does make it a lot easier, I think. Found a good connection there. We have a lot of the same language that we use, so. And there's not that distrust of one another's perceptions and things. Nico says, laugh and purple hearts. Gabrielle says, yeah, I always wanted to talk about UFOs, and I'm a Gemini, so can rattle on for a while if given the chance. I have a Gemini rising, which is why I'm a good storyteller, supposedly. but it comes in the family, so I think any sign I was would have been a storyteller because that's sort of my family's thing. Gabriel says, I'm like, please, someone bring up UFOs. I'm like, where's an invasion when you really need one? As a distraction. Oh, well.
Can we get them to target? Fine.
Yep, don't say that. Jay says, what's your next topic for video? Well, I just did the one that's coming out, which is going to be on creating your own shield, your own personal energy shield, and how to work with it and make it so that you can go to Walmart or some other store like that and not come out riddled with whatever the stuff is going on in the store attached to you as you leave and making you go insane. So that's the next video coming out. And I'm not sure what I'm going to work on after that. I'm waiting for inspiration. And so, yeah, since the way I work is like organic, I guess, rather than agenda planned kind of thing. So people ask me questions, and I think that would make a good video, have a good conversation with someone, and think that that could be a good subject to expound upon. People can suggest a video. Sometimes I've already done one and they can't find it. I've done like over 400 of them at this point. So if you're what you want is to like, go through learning the basics and so forth, we have a whole list of videos on how to do it and so forth, at least from my point of view and from Ian's as well. Ariel says, haha. Carla says, did you see they just discovered a new planet with life, or at least proof of it on it? Not life like us, but still. Well, they're being circumspect about it. They have here, that particular compound is only created by life. But then again, there might be other ways it could be created that they haven't thought of. So they're trying to hedge their bets.
Well, a good example of that thing I just saw is something that,
the volt on the ocean floor.
Yeah, they just discovered that, well, long story short, batteries are forming themselves on the ocean floor and electrifying the ocean floor, and it's affecting the flora and fauna of the area. But they just discovered this, even though I showed Siofra like years ago how to make a simple battery with using two different metals with salt water. You just use basically almost any two different metals, put a paper towel soaked with salt water in the middle, and you can show a volt and a half on the meter. So it took them this long to figure out that two dissimilar metals may be touching on the ocean floor and making an electric charge. That's what got me about it. It's like, after all these years, make a big deal out of that. It's like nobody ever thought of that. I mean,
and the thing is, they're making oxygen. They're creating electrolysis on the ocean floor and making oxygen in the process.
Because when water gets electricity run through it, it breaks up into hydrogen and oxygen gas. So that's how they discovered it, was because of the oxygen forming where they thought it shouldn't be. But it's kind of interesting how it's like, well, we've known how to make batteries since like at least the 1800s.
Oh, longer ago than that.
Longer ago than that,
Yeah.
So it's like, and they're shocked that this is happening naturally on the ocean floor. All you need is salt water and two dissimilar metals, But I guess it just never occurred to anybody ever that this could be there and affect life. They found it actually affecting patterns on the ocean floor was another thing they found that puzzled them. Making patterns and stuff that
like in the sand and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Gabrielle says, I saw a fairy in a spaceship flying around while the humanoid was flying and thought how bizarre, but then I realized it was a marriage of science and magic, that they're not separated. So it was a message about reality that these two things are merging.
That's a good point. It's only separated because there are certain things that scientists cannot admit or won't allow themselves to research at present. I'm sure eventually, they can get this stuff into a science, but right at the moment we're not going the right the right approach towards it. And I was talking about earlier this morning before the live chat, I got asked a question about electromagnetism and seeing auras and things like that, and my conclusion is that if it were all an electromagnetic force, we have lots of sensitive instruments that can detect that very easily. So as far as physical electromagnetism, it's definitely not, because that we could pick up, we could see it, we could view auras and cameras easily, and there aren't really any true aura cameras,
Right.
as I was able to determine. Um, so yeah, so it's some analogous to electromagnetic energy, but it's not that. Otherwise, we could pick it up and detect it, and see where somebody was transmitting a strong thought and things like that, and we can't do that. And we have real good control over the electromagnetic spectrum at this point.
Teresa
Right.
says, I'm working on breaking the telepathic link with my oppressor. Listened to Ian's mind training video yesterday. Good. Gabrielle says, oh, Jay says, lots of chemtrails in my area. Anything we can do? Government denies it all. Well, for one thing, chemtrails are basically water vapor because of the difference in temperature and stuff like that. But there's no doubt that there is some fuel that's coming out with it. And fuel particles are definitely falling to the ground, which would be the only real chemical that would be detectable in that kind of thing. And I don't know that there's anything you can do about it as long as planes are using fuel and flying.
Well, yeah, using the type of fuel we're using
Yeah.
now, burnable fuel.
There was one plane that they started to develop that's supposed to be on green energy only, electrical, and created green. And so they're developing that kind of thing, which would actually solve that problem if they could get it geared up to the point where they could carry lots of people.
Right. Well, they've been doing a lot of research on plasma thrusters and things for spaceships. The question is, could they get an ionic thruster that would give enough thrust in our environment? If they could, that would be an interesting way. Of course, in that case, you'd be generating ionization there.
Yeah, plastics is actually a big, huge problem too that we've been seeing lately. So we're getting rid of all of our plastic containers and buying glass because glass doesn't combine with anything. And they're talking about how nanoplastic particles are getting into our bloodstream and clogging people's arteries and causing heart disease,
Yeah.
which I think would be much more problematic at the
Yeah.
moment as something we could do
Well, a
something
large
about.
part of it was not the particles themselves clogging up, but they cause inflammation that then makes the arteries sticky because of the inflammation and stuff. So yeah, they're
Yeah.
basically causing that effect. They're not making like a clog in your arteries of plastic particles, but they're causing the same effect as if they were.
Okay. Carla says, that's really cool. I'm going to read about that later on, Ian, about the battery on the ocean floor. Gabrielle says, yep, and they're actively ignoring where the science is leading because it makes them nervous and they don't want to jeopardize their careers. I'm sure that there's some of them like that. Pickle says, not only that, but some of them are just so arrogant that they know more than anyone else, that they only generate data to prove themselves right so they don't actually even
Yeah,
interrogate the
I've
alternatives.
seen a lot of that has offended me personally in watching some of these articles and
Well,
things.
that's the unconscious
Yeah,
bias that everybody brings to everything, and
yeah,
learning how to set that unconscious bias aside is a challenge for most people.
yeah,
It's like most people are so involved in or immersed in their bias that they don't even know that they have one. And so it's very difficult to clearly think through problems. And then the ego, of course, gets involved as well and really feeds on those unconscious biases and stuff like that. And they kind of reinforce one another in certain cases. That's why when you go see a doctor, it can be problematic because, the doctor, the first 5 words coming out of your mouth, the doctor goes down a trail in his head and bam, he's got an answer and it may not have anything to do with what's going on with you. It's very hard to communicate with people who have these steady tracks. They have like internal tracks that they're following. And in part of shadow work is finding out about those, is following those paths in ourselves and seeing where we have our own biases and trying to take them apart and look at them more dispassionately and figure out if they're actually valid or true
yeah.
in any way
I think
whatsoever.
that's pretty important for self development. Even on a mundane level, I ran into that with all the technicians I worked with when I was working for the Oregon Lottery, and the problem, the majority of service calls that were passed, it seemed to me, were because a lot of the technicians didn't, they had some reason to not believe that the person putting in the call had a reason to be complaining and just their own ignorance, and they didn't know what they were doing. And so I kept having to go and fix other people's service calls, that they hadn't done. We had a pretty good team where I was at here where I live. But yeah, that was one of the big things was those old biases that the people don't know what they're talking about. And one of the things that made me one of the best technicians in Oregon and around here was the fact that I would actually listen and try to find out what was causing their problem. It didn't mean the machine was broken down, but they had a problem. They wouldn't be calling and wasting their time and money. They're, the owners of the places are busy people. They wouldn't be calling with problems if there weren't problems. A lot of it was just figuring out what they're actually getting at and then fixing it. And so they were all happy with me as the technician, because I just listened. And a lot of that's like the most important thing. Pay attention to what's going on and don't get in all these ruts. People get in ruts.
So Gabrielle says the universities do repetitive, pointless experiments, but won't let the newer experiments break through. Like the researcher with the telepathy tapes was ignored by her colleagues, even though she replicated the telepathy with many nonverbal autistics. And yep, Ickle Pixie. Carla says, and those crappy Teflon pans, oh my god, the amount of microplastics they release, especially if they're scratched. Yeah, and they put them in everything. Gabrielle says, yeah, I had a doctor that ignored a side effect that caused inflammation with my Achilles tendon because it was rare. She didn't take it seriously until I ended up in the ER.
Yeah, that happened to me too. It was, what was the name of that?
Levaquin.
Levaquin.
Yeah, Levaquin.
Yeah, and I had problems with my Achilles tendon in my left heel too. I couldn't take it after two pills. Taking two of the pills, it gave me a snapping sound and pain in my tendon for like 5 or 6 years afterwards.
You could hear him across 100 feet away. You could hear it snap.
If I'd have kept taking it, I would have been in the hospital, maybe permanently damaged my Achilles tendon. It was pretty bad. Yep.
Yeah, it's known to actually detach.
Yeah.
It can definitely happen.
Yep.
And Gabrielle says, she goes, yeah, but you have beautiful skin. Yeah. Wow. Okay then. Carla says, Gabrielle, I always try those telepathy clairvoyance tests on Facebook, like the pick which color card, etc. is going to be shown, and I never get them right. Gabrielle says, oh, to say, terrible, Ian.
Yeah, but thankfully Siofra saved me on that because I wasn't sure I was going to take more of them, but yeah, she was lucky enough I was lucky enough that she looked at the potential side effects part of the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, when it first came out, we were one of the first people to get it. It had just come out on the market, and I went to the pharmacy and I asked the pharmacist because the doctor said there were no side effects, and that can't be true. Everything has side effects, no matter what it is, and at least some. And so that made me suspicious. So I went to the pharmacy and told them I wasn't going to buy it unless they gave me the original disclosure statement because they didn't know what the side effects were because it was so new. So I got the disclosure statement and had to put on my really powerful reading glasses because the print is like micro dots kind of thing. And I was reading through the list after he took one. I was reading through the list, and of course the first ones were death, insanity, suicide, which had happened but were extremely rare. And then it was the completely spontaneous Achilles tendon snapping off potentially, and even turning to mush and not being able to be reattached. And so I'm going through this list, and he doesn't know what I'm reading. And all of a sudden, he grabs his left Achilles tendon and starts to yell. I'm like, what's happening? He's like, my left Achilles tendon really hurts. It's like a lot. And I'm like, okay, here's what I'm reading right now. He says, oh, it's probably a coincidence. I'm like, I don't know. I'm a body worker, and I can tell you that's one body part you have never complained about before since I've met you. So, and then it happened the next night, and I said, that's it, you're not taking it anymore. It says right here to stop taking it if you get that side effect. So, being aware of your own body and what's happening to it, vitally important.
Yeah, and I would have taken more, and I'm glad he didn't because I'm convinced, especially since how long I had a problem. It caused me this problem for like 4 or 5 years after a problem I'd never had before. It finally healed up, not entirely though. It still occasionally gives out a loud snap every now and then.
Yep, every so often.
Very often.
Thank goodness.
It was bad enough. It would happen every step I took and go snap, snap, and it would hurt each time.
It hurt me every time I heard it. I'm like, oh, I thought it was going to detach. I thought it was going to snap right off, but thank goodness it didn't. Yeah. Nicole says, makes me think of Terry Pratchett's 1 in a million chances happen 9 times out of 10.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we're all so different. That's the thing. It's like every single person is different, and just because something is rare doesn't mean it can't happen to you, and that's the problem. That doctors are trained that this is rare, so they're probably just imagining it or something like that, and it's just like that's not necessarily the case. I'm sure there are some
Yeah.
cases where people get it in their head and drive their bodies crazy, but
But at
still,
least the doctor should be open to listening. Whatever
yep.
it is, they should listen to it and then base their decision on that. No, like reject and just push away. You're stupid. Go away. I don't want to talk to you.
Again, unconscious
Yep.
biases just
Yep.
snap decisions like that, and they sometimes have your life in their hands. So you really don't want to have a doctor like that. I believe in Western medicine. I believe in you know um, germs, unlike the head of the health agency and whatnot. And so, yeah, I believe in immunizations because I can take them. There are some people who can't, and they work for me. And I weirdly enough, health wise, I just discovered the other day that I had scarlet fever when I was 22, and I did not know it. I mean, they told me I had scarlatina, and I thought that meant it was a milder version of scarlet fever. It was like scarlet fever light. And I just figured it out yesterday when I was telling somebody about it. And then they said, well, what are the differences in the symptoms? And I looked it up and it says scarlet fever, also known as scarlatina. I'm like, what? Now I have to tell the doctor. I don't know if it makes any difference, but I just thought it was weird that they didn't tell you anything back then. So there's some things about my health apparently I still don't know because they don't talk to you. So anyway, Carla says, right, Siofra? Gabrielle says, I'm being tried it a few times, Carla, and only got one right. My mind is too squirrely. Okay. But yeah, always remember everyone is different because if you're not allergic to something, that doesn't mean no one else is. That's the biggest one. Like, it's not something wrong with them because they have an allergy or they have a different kind of system. Their body doesn't like this or that, and you do. It's not personal. They're not making a comment about you and how stupid you are, that you like something that they don't. It's like, yeah, take it out of the realm of, yeah, that kind of thing. I can't remember how many times I've had down out fights about what my body doesn't like for food, which just makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's just my body.
Well, people get very like
Incensed. They
yeah,
take
about their
it
food. They take
personally.
food stuff like yeah.
You don't like peppers? What is wrong with you? You need to fix that. Like, okay, sorry, I'm staying away from you.
Yeah, people take it so personally. You don't like this, so you don't like them. It's like, no, I just, bodies are all different.
Yep, and that's the thing is like most people identify with who they are, with what they like and what they do, and what they believe and so forth, and so they're very invested. Their entire meaning in their of existence or whatever, like whether they fit or not or okay or not, have this list of things with that can hit up against other people without even accidentally. It's just very strange. It's like projecting your personality into all of that stuff and then making it about you. If someone else doesn't like that one thing that you like, then you don't like them. And yeah, so Ickle says, listening with headphones on, and my husband just said, why are your eyes so wide? What are you watching?
I don't know. I hope you thought of something good to answer with. That
Oh,
would have
hey.
tickled my sense of humor. I don't know what I would have come up with, but
Well, I like that meme I came across recently that I posted to my Facebook page. It's like this creepy guy comes up to me in a bar and says, how do you stay so young? And the woman says, well, I drink the blood of men who sacrificed themselves. I'm a 1,000-year-old witch, and I drink the blood of men as a sacrifice to keep my youthful looks. I'm just like, yeah, I like it. Stupid questions. But all right, so we're getting down to the end of our show. It's actually an hour and a half already. Carla says, let's keep trying, Gabriella. It'll help us focus that Claire. Gabriella says, laugh out loud, checks out. Yep. Thank you to Fun Live, says Violet.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Violet. And yes, we've had fun today. We never know what we're going to talk about, but we cover some good subjects, I think, with all the energy stuff and, you know, the fairy stuff and all that other jazz. We had a blast and we had some good questions. So, okay, so anybody who has another question, email me, siofrasmagicalcove@gmail.com. I will answer questions. And if you have suggestions, you can either put them in an email or you can post them to the community page on the website or on the YouTube channel. And I will be posting the Zoom link thing there later on today or early tomorrow if for some reason I forget. All right. Ian says, blessed be, thank you all. Carla says, love you all. Can't wait to see you on the full moon live. Carla says, the Jay just yelled. It said bye too. Yay, Jay. All right, everybody, have yourself a glorious week. And some of you we will see here or whatever on Friday. And we'll see you next week for sure. And the video on the meditation to create your shield will be out in a couple of days at the latest. All right, guys?
All right.
Everybody have a blast. Gabrielle says bye. Good night, all. Blessed be. Have a good week.
I wish I was asleep the whole